Adam.
Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Veteran Show with your friendly host, me, Adam Scarborough. It's the first time I've hosted this show, and thank you very much for the opportunity, Darren. And tonight we'd like to introduce a very special guest, Gerry Mackinnon. And Gerry's on the other line at the moment. And when you're ready, Gerry, could you just introduce yourself, please?
I am Gerry Mackinnon, 63 years old, graduated of the Royal Military College of Canada, 1987. Flew in the Royal Canadian Air Force for the F-18, fought in Desert Storm, and never diagnosed with PTSD. But certainly, if I was to talk to a therapist today, they would certainly say that that's what I had. My service caused me some nightmares, a recurring nightmare, and the reason is pretty clear. And we can start at the beginning. So, joined the Army because both my father, you got a picture of my dad there, I think, Edmund.
Yep, 1
In
second.
his dragoon uniform.
Just bear with me, guys. I'm going to go through them because they're very small on my phone. So, picture of your father. Is that one?
Oh, that's Recruit McKinnon. That's going to basic officer training for the second time. Prior to going to the Royal Military College.
Okay.
Right. Great photo.
Look at those sloppy ears, eh? So that's father-in-law. That's Karen's daddy. He was a 17-year-old volunteer for the U.S. Army as a Canadian because they knew he was 17 in Canada. They wouldn't take him. So he crossed the river, joined the U.S. Army, and that's a picture that our daughter did, Lauren, our beautiful daughter, that she did for Karen. She took a 2-inch by 3-inch, I don't know what that is in centimeters anymore, but one picture that we had, black and white, of Alphonse Leo Couture, Karen's daddy, and she made a beautiful full-size bust on a charcoal for her mummy. So Al served in World War II, fought in Okinawa, and just for a year, and then got out and went on with his life. Learned to be a butcher. He volunteered to get into the kitchen system over there because he got tired of hunting Japanese in the woods, dug in the woods. So they needed a butcher, and he told them that he could cut meat, which is a lie, but the mess sergeant taught him how to cut meat, and he was a butcher the rest of his life. So that's my father-in-law. My dad is it's in a formal dragoon uniform there. You got a picture of that?
Yeah, I'm on the phone, so it's very small.
No, that's Uncle Ray. We'll get to him.
I'll just flick through them. Do you know what? Where is he? I don't know.
That's Uncle Ray pinning my wings on.
Okay.
We'll use that one in a bit.
I might have
That's
to
getting married.
upload
That's getting married to Karen. My mate's in their scarlet uniform, so that's the formal dress uniform from the Royal Military College of Canada. And my beautiful bride made that dress. I was 24 years old then.
Which one did you say your father was?
I sent you a picture of him in a formal mess kit as a dragoon, as a young man.
I've just got it there now. Hang on. Just adding it now. Bear with me.
So Dad joined the Canadian Officer Training Corps. That's it. Perfect. Dad joined the Canadian Officer Training Corps after high school. He was an Army cadet all through high school, and he wanted to serve in the Army. So he joined went into school as a civil engineer, was going to be a sapper, and after 2 weeks decided that he didn't really like engineering school at all. So he remustered to pre-med, which his older brother was a doctor, and he told his recruiting officer, hey, I'm not in engineering school anymore. I'm in pre-med. So the gentleman said, well, Mr. McKinnon, just carry on. We'll let you know. So he got 2 years at St. FX University in Nova Scotia. And then they called him in and said, well, son, the Army's decided that we don't need doctors right now. So you owe us for 2 years of upper education. He said, well, I have no money. And the officer he was speaking to said, I figured you'd say that. So here's the deal. We're going to commission you. You've enough time in. We're going to make you a full lieutenant. We're going to post you to Camp Borden, where you'll be the platoon officer for new recruits in the Army Corps. And you're going to carry out those duties for 2 years. And then we'll be paid in full. And my father said, I have no fucking idea how to do that. And the officer said, I figured you'd say that. So here's how you do that, son. You keep your mouth shut. You do what your sergeant tells you to do. You sign what he tells you to sign, and you'll be fine. Any questions? He goes, no, I can do that. So he served as a in the Armored Corps as a platoon officer for new recruits coming in off the street for a couple of years. Now, the interesting thing about that uniform, it's not his. He borrowed it from a mate who was exactly his size. And if you look at the shoulder closely, I don't know if people can zoom in on that or not, but it's only got one pip on it. So that's a second lieutenant. He was a full lieutenant, so he should be wearing 2 pips, but he's only wearing 1. And that was just borrowed to get a nice snap of him as a dragoon. So that's what caused me to go into the Army initially. I wanted to go to military college, and we could probably cut to Uncle Ray at this point. Warrant Officer Ray Gillis, the picture I gave you.
Uncle Ray is that one?
That's it. Yep. So that's my uncle. That's Mom's brother. So he went into the Air Force when he was 17 in Canada, became an aero engine tech mechanic, got posted to Europe right away. Worked on as an engine tech on the CF 104s over there back in his day, and did that for quite some time and rose through the ranks and eventually became a flight engineer. Wow. So he was a flyer, but a flyer as a, eventually when he retired, he made Master Warrant Officer before he retired, actually. 28 years in Royal Canadian Air Force. Well, when I was talking to Ray about, going in the Air Force and becoming a pilot and things, he said, well, you must go to military college. This is the way to do it. This is the best thing to do. I said, Ray, I just want to go out of high school. You had a program back then that you graduated 12th grade, they take you into the Air Force and teach you to fly. It was left over from the wartime days, really. And I knew some people that did that. And, they found themselves 19 years old flying a CF-104 in Baden-Soligen. Sign me up for that. But Ray said, no, that's not the way to do it. You should go to school. You get a degree. So you got something to fall back on. I said, well, we'll see about that. So it was late in the 13th grade. So in Ontario, we had to do 13th grade if you wanted to go to 4-year uni. Late in the year, I walked into the recruiting office and he said, what are you doing here, son? And there was a picture of a 104 on the wall behind him. I said, I want to do that. And he said, well, yeah, you and 10,000 other kids like you. I said, well, I'm sorry, sir, but you should start making some phone calls because I'm your guy. Mm-hmm. He goes, sit down. So I said, my Uncle Ray wants me to go to military college. Is that a possibility this year? And he said, no, it's not. You're way late in the game. I said, all right, what can I do? He said, well, you can enroll in university, keep your education going. You've done 3 maths and 3 sciences in grade 13. I need a language credit of some sort. I said, well, I am enrolled at the University of Windsor as a backup. He said, well, good. I said, what else can I do? He said, well, if you have a mind to, the Army's just across the street. Go over and talk to them. There's the Essex Scottish there and the Windsor Regiment, the Armored Corps. I said, all right, I'll think about that one. So I thought about it, slept on it, decided, well, heck yeah, this will do a couple things. It'll let me try on the military without going away from home, particularly, other than basic training, and see if I really should sign up for 9 years. That was the commitment. 4 years of RMC for 5 years of service. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. I'm not against it. Dad was military. I knew Al, but Karen wasn't my wife yet. But I'll give it a go. So being a Mackinnon, very Scottish name, old Jacobite name. However, my DNA shows me as 50% Irish, believe it or not, but that's a whole other issue. I decided I'll join the Essex Scottish, see if they'll let me in this program where as long as you enrolled in uni, they could take you in as an officer. And the sergeant I spoke to there was so dead set against it. He said, nope, we promote from within. You'll be a private first. We'll see if we like you, and then we'll make you an officer. I said, all right. So I went down to the Windsor Regiment and spoke to a fellow named Major Bren Gunn, for real. His name was Bren Gunn.
Wow.
And he was a police captain and also a major in the Windsor Regiment. He said, come on in, son. Sit down. Let's have a chat. So we did. And he said, can you take a 20-question aptitude test? I said, sure. Took me about 20 minutes. Brought it back to him. He scored it right away. And he said, well, how'd you like to go to basic officer training this summer? And I said, okay. So I went. And now That was basic officer training number one. Served up my year there, going to University of Windsor, got the language credits I needed, coordinated with the Captain Davies was his name. And I learned, he told me afterwards, after I got into RMC, he said, I flew 104s, but I also flew C-130s with your Uncle Ray. And I know him well. So when you showed up in my face, I called him and I said, what do you think? He goes, you don't let him in unless he's going to military college. And I said, all right, Mary, I'll do that for you. I'll make it happen too. So there you go. Isn't that a small world, right?
Wow.
So Captain Davies punched out of a 104, detached both retinas, and that's why he was relegated to only multi-crew aircraft when he went back to flight status. So he worked with Uncle Ray on the C-130s. Ray was one of his engineers. So small world, but Uncle Ray is like your consummate man's man. Golden Gloves boxer, skydiver, ski racer, kind of an everything sort of guy, right? And it's not the mini bike that I had at the time, but if you saw that red mini bike up there, I remember when I was 12 years old, Ray taught me to tune a carburetor. It's a skill I still have. Not many carburetors in use anymore, so it's not a terribly, useful skill today, but I do know how to tune a carburetor because he taught me to. Just that kind of guy, right? So he's a force in your life when you have a man like Uncle Ray. So I was able to later on get Ray to pin on my Air Force wings when I graduated pilot school, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Back to the Army. So I'm in the Army Corps for a year. And what we drove in the Winter Regiment was a thing called a Cougar. I don't have a picture of that. It's a 6-wheeled tank trainer, if you will. They use them for urban assault, things like that. But, full turret on it, 56 millimeter gun. I sat in the officer's seat up top, and I had a machine gun in front of me. But, we did exercises with them, so you're locked in those things, right? When you're moving on the move, especially if you're attacking or under attack, you're in a tank for all intents and purposes. It feels like that.
Yep.
So that's what I did for the year. Got in RMC, through RMC, graduated 16th of May, 1987, married Karen on the 23rd, 1 week later. Not allowed to be married in military college, but I mean, we've been together since we were 16. Love of my life. The only woman I've ever been with. Still is. And she was integral in getting me through my troubles when it happened too. Because the powerful love we have for each other was really helpful. But so after military college, with my new bride, went to flight school, and then you can throw up that picture of Ray. I think there might be two of them pinning my wings on me, my Air Force wings. I'm a full lieutenant by then, I think.
Just tell me when to stop. Because
There you go. Stop.
Yeah.
That's him, Uncle Ray, making me a new wing pilot. Now he was out of the Air Force by then.
Wow.
He'd done 28 years. He's retired.
Wow.
And here's the
Incredible.
thing. I could have asked my father to pin on my wings. So I had a talk with Dad. And I said, Ray's been a force in my life for what I'm doing. And I love you dearly, Pop. But I'm going to ask Ray to pin my wings on. And I said, I'm not really asking for your permission, Dad. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. And he goes, that's the right thing to do. I agree.
Wow.
You should. Ray has no children, never married. So pretty special time in my life. I did very well in flight school, got selected for fighter jets and flew that F5. That's the pointy little jet behind me. I'm wearing a parachute on my back. The green one. No, that's the Hornet.
This one?
No, the other one. Anyway, so the CF5 is what we used as the basic fighter trainer. I got my wings in a Tudor jet, and there was one in the background in that photo, but anyway, not too important. That's after the war coming home.
It's so small on here. Yeah, I can't seem to find that one. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
There you go. That's a CF5. So that's the first jet fighter I flew. And you'll notice the probe and drogue refueling boom. So those were only on the single seaters. Those weren't on the family model trainers. So the first time you're to refuel, you're solo. So you're going to go up and have a midair with another airplane, and there's no instructor in the back to say, you're doing it wrong. Stop it. So just some sorts of the adventures of becoming a fighter pilot. So did very well in that. We were the first class. We still had 2 active F5 squadrons, but they were both being drawn down. So we were the first basic fighter class that nobody went to the F5. Everybody went to the F-18. So that's the other fighter jet, the big gray one.
This one?
Yep, that's it. That's my 776. That's a recurring airplane in my life. So I was tasked when I was on 441 Tactical Fighter Squadron to have a hero shot shoot day, right? So I used my jet. You can't see it; it's on the other side, but on the other canopy rail, it says Captain GA and in quotations SMAC SMAK, the call sign Mackinnon.
Wow,
Pretty cool.
that is cool.
So she was with me in Desert Storm, and I think I sent you a picture of that. I'm not sure if I did or not, but
I'll show
anyway.
you. Oh yeah, go on.
That's the F-18. If there's a picture of Desert Storm, I was not on the squadron that went. So at Cold Lake, 416 Squadron, which was next door to 441 Squadron, was tasked to replace. So the guys from Germany had been there. 2 of our German squadrons had been there for about 6 months, for all the workup, the preamble to the actual war. So they got rotated out just before the actual war started. So they didn't get to do any fighting. And I can't say that they weren't pissed, because they were pissed because suddenly the Canadians show up. And it was a bit of an amalgamation. They had some from the Tiger Squadron, and that was, I don't remember, 421, I think, and 416 together. So they call themselves the Desert Cats. So the war started on 17th of January, and about the 20th or so, a call came into our squadron, and they wanted 2 more guys. They needed two bodies to plus it up to 40 full pilots for a good rotation of 24 airplanes. And Ziffer, Major Rick Zavitsky, my deputy commanding officer, him and I were sent to 441 Squadron together. And good friend, he called me in the office and he said, "Smack, I need to send 2. You're number 1. I said, "I'm in." And he said, "No, you're not. You go home and talk to Karen. And if she says no vehemently and you change your mind, nobody will even know we had this conversation." I said, "All right." So I went home and talked to Karen. Before we even got done the conversation, she was in tears. She said, I said, "What are you crying for? I didn't tell you, see how I decided." And she said, "I know what you've decided, sweetheart. So I'm not happy, but I understand." So off I went. Got into the theater through, I went to Germany first. Flew a civilian airliner, Lufthansa, from Toronto to Frankfurt, Germany. My 3 brothers and my mom and dad came to see me at the airport between flights, and we spent about a couple hours together and said goodbye and good luck, and we'll see you again. And then I went off to Germany. I had to do 1 nuclear, biological, chemical warfare flight and all the gear, and that was done in Baden. So I drew all my gear. You try it all on. You formally dress as if it was war, and it was a nuclear, biological, chemical environment. So when you walk out to the jet, you got a breathing pack, and you're breathing through your helmet and mask, and you go up and see what it's like to fly an F-18 with double gloves and all that gear on. And it wasn't that bad, because it's pretty, tight little space anyway, but you're in a, full-on suit. So if you have some claustrophobic tendencies, it wouldn't be a happy situation for you, I don't think. So that's complete. I get on a C-130. We bounce through Cyprus, and there's a couple little really uncomfortable web seats. Anybody that's been in the back of a C-130 knows what that's like. And there's a whole bunch of missile boxes. So I said to the loadmaster, "Can I just go up there and sleep?" And he goes, "If I wasn't on duty, son, that's where I'd be." So that's what I did.
Fair one. Fair comment.
Say again?
Fair comment. Fair comment.
Yeah, fair comment. Big time, big time. And so we bounced through Cyprus. I get into theater, check in, meet the colonel, Colonel Don Matthews, call sign Fang. if you've seen the movie Top Gun, the original, think Viper, only cooler and fucking real. He's a real man doing a real job. He's our lieutenant colonel. And, you know, he says, you've had a long day. I said, I have, sir. He said, go to bed. We'll meet again tomorrow in my office at noon. I said, oh, Roger. So I tucked in and slept hard. Next morning, I woke up to the sound of small arms fire, and I thought, oh, Jesus Christ, we're being attacked. I show up, we're being overrun. Well, that wasn't the case. What anyone failed to inform me was that the small arms training range for the base defense force, which was, you know, it was right up behind my Atco trailer. So they were just doing weapons training, shooting live weapons, which they did regularly to stay current and qualified. So that was an interesting first awakening for sure. And then I met with the colonel, put me on the flight schedule, and said, I'm going to put you with your squadron mate, Bill Ryan. We had two guys that were called from 441 initially, Major Bill Ryan and Major David Deere, and Captain David Deere. Bill Ryan was stiff, and David Deere, call sign Bambi. And he didn't like it. But once you're tagged, you're tagged. So he was Bambi for life in the Air Force. Two really good guys. So I flew with Stiff on my first mission. It was a night CAP mission, Combat Air Patrol. We were defending the U.S. Navy first line of defense right off the coast of Kuwait all night, every night, because the Canadian Hornet had the ability to visually identify a target at night. We installed a very Canadian thing, a 60,000 candle power ID light in the forward gun access door, and we were trained to put it on target. So that was my first mission, going out to sit the cap for 3 hours with a couple of refuelings. And as I'm steaming out there with Stiff in the lead, I see a big plume, looks like a surface to air missile launch, down to my right. So I'm looking at my radar warning receiver, looking outside, looking at my radar warning receiver. Probably goes maybe 3-4 seconds, but feels like 3 minutes. And I figure out that, it's a solid fuel booster on a cruise missile off a ship. Okay, I guess this is not the day I die, because I don't know what's coming at me. I haven't figured it out yet, right? I haven't processed it yet. So we get on the cap, we complete the mission. I had 2 live intercepts on the cap, but that's a whole other story. So that was mission 1. So now the war's going pretty strong. We're talking early February, and we get sent to do we're doing some air to ground work at this point. And I think there's a picture of that with maybe mission planning the night before. It's me in a uniform, looking like Errol Flynn, as my wife says. Tan flight suit.
This one, no.
No, that's Recruit Mackinnon. That's when I got.
Oh.
Red mini bike.
No.
Uncle Red taught me how to tune the car. Married. Here. Nope. Whoa. That's it. So that's the night before the mission. And we planned a mission to take out some heavy artillery pieces that were non-mobile. They were big, heavy artillery pieces. So that was the plan. And I think I've got a picture of the loadout the next day that we took off with. It should be just an F-18 with a bunch of bombs on the wings.
Let me just have a look. No, I can't see that one. I might not have uploaded it.
Okay. Anyway, it is a picture of
No.
the loadout. So imagine that airplane. You can go back to the F-18 if you want.
Yeah.
So that's got an AIM-7 on a pylon, and it's got a fuel tank on a pylon, centerline fuel tank. There's AIM-7s on the hips of the aircraft as well, and AIM-9s on the tips, wing tips. So this loadout would be 4x2, 4 AIM-7s, 2 AIM-9s. Well, the loadout for the air-to-ground mission was both pylons had MIRVs on them, so they had 2 Mark 82 500-pound bombs each. So 4 bombs on each wing, 8 bombs total, 500 pounds per, with AIM-7s on the hip, AIM-9s on the tip, centerline fuel tank, and 578 rounds of HEI, high explosive incendiary in the nose, 20 millimeter. So that's the load I'm taking to go attack these artillery pieces, we think. I'm number 4. I'm the junior wingman, but you know, everybody's pretty damn good at their job. So, you're getting the opportunity to do this. And I say that because it's kind of our psyche, right? Like, I realized when I was at Sidebar, when I was at United Airlines for so many years, there's a lot of fighter pilots in the world. There's not a lot of fighter pilots that get to go fight. And it's kind of the attitude we have, that get to go fight, that are told to go fight, that have to go fight. So I got that load, and we're headed for these artillery pieces. Well, the FIBA is moving so fast. Do I need to explain what FIBA is, or will everybody here know that?
Yeah, I don't know what fever is.
All right, forward edge of the battle area.
Okay, yeah.
Forward edge of the battle area, FIBA. It's moving so fast that it's very dynamic, right? So Red Crown, who's controlling us, that's the Navy radar, he passes us to a fast back forward air controller. So that's a guy, a U.S. guy in an F-16 down in the weeds, well, it's the desert, they're little weeds, but he's at about 100 feet, going fast with a helmet-mounted sight, and he can designate targets. And so we get past to him, and with my lead, he says, how many waypoints can you 8 waypoint digits can you upload? And my lead says 12 degrees, minutes, and seconds, right? And he says, well, I'm passing 16s, so I'm going to pass it to AWACS, contact them on this frequency. And we do. And AWACS puts them to us via data link. And, a waypoint appears on my screen in the Hornet. I hit accept, and now I've got the target designated. So we've all done that, all four of us. So lead quick briefs from the air. All right, we're going to tip in at 35,000 feet, 45-degree dive. This is like a rebriefing, because the shit we briefed the night before is useless now, right? I'm going to tip in a 45-degree dive, idle speed brakes. I'll take we're in a card 4 formation. He said, I'll take the targets close to what would be my position here. So ahead and left. 2, you take ahead and right. 3, aft and left. 4, aft and right. So we execute this. We go in one at a time. And so I'm coming down the chute. I can see lead pull off. I see his weapons explode. I see two pull off, and just catch his weapons going when I see 3 pull off. And now I'm in. So I'm coming down the chute. And we hadn't briefed this, but I thought, well, what the hell? I got 578 rounds of 20 millimeter HI in the nose. Let her rip. So I pulled the trigger and held it for about 6 seconds. And they're all gone.
Wow.
So you got a bunch of bullets coming down, sweeten the target, delivered by 18,000 feet as ordered per rules of engagement from Canada, and pull off, don't bottom up below 14,000, and off we go. So it was a column of armored personnel carriers, Republican Guard armored personnel carriers, 2 columns, about a dozen of them, and they were forming to flank a company of U.S. infantry that was flanking a company of Republican Guard infantry. So these guys were trying to make, the American infantry go down. A nasty day for them, but they didn't get to do any of it. They were gone, obliterated. So here's the story. When I got home, we met the Prime Minister. We landed in Ottawa. It was big, we came home as heroes. Unfortunately, unlike the Vietnam kids who came back the previous war that, we had kids involved in, the Canadian volunteers. There was no Canadian involvement, but a lot of Canadian volunteers. They came home, not like I came home, to a fanfare, meet the Prime Minister, yada, yada, yada. But I get back to Cold Lake. My wife couldn't come out to Ottawa to meet me, but my parents came up and in Ottawa when I landed. And I get back to Cold Lake, and now I'm back with Karen. And this came out just before I got home. I got home just before my birthday, which is March 30th. It was March 30th, so 63 on that one. And this came out, I think the date on it is March 11th. So the war is over, and this is a shot they took of me over there for the magazine cover. And we're sitting around at a picnic table not doing much. And the deputy commanding officer, for the life of me, I can't remember his name, Major, comes out and he goes, "All right, one of you idiots has got to go take some shots with the McLean's people." And nobody volunteers. So he looks at me and he goes, "Smack, you're the junior man here. You're it. Go." So that's where that picture came from. So that's in a jet over at in Doha, Qatar. And you can see it's a bullshit hero shot because I'm wearing my patch, because he said, "Don't take your patch off," because we wouldn't wear that on a combat mission, right? Those are velcroed on. So I wouldn't be wearing that if it was a real combat mission. So it's just, look at me and pose for the camera. I'm like,
Yeah.
"What do you want me to do?" He said, "I don't know, just be yourself." So there's me being myself, I guess. Anyway, so that's all happened. I get back to Karen. I'm ecstatic. And, we get home. I meet the colonel, new colonel. I didn't really know him. I knew my old colonel very well, but I didn't know this guy very well. But, you meet him. It's fanfare arrival. We did a 9-ship formation, both in Ottawa and in Cold Lake, led by my lead that I was telling you about, Stiff. So he was a Stonebird in a prior posting in the big 9-ship demonstration team. So he led us in a 9-ship flyover. In Ottawa, we had the tanker with us. We had our 707 tanker with us that, incidentally, Uncle Ray flew, not during the war, but he flew it for years when he was a flight engineer. That was the last thing he flew in the Air Force, with the 707 tanker. So he knew exactly what I was up to when I was over there doing what we did. And we didn't use just the Canadian tanker. We used anything that had fuel. As a matter of fact, there's just a cute little sidebar exchange where a Navy F-14 pilot, on the frequency that I'm on, says, "Red Crown, I think you've lost your marbles. You vectored me onto a civilian airliner," because the way the Canadian tankers were painted up, you'd have to just pull up Canadian 707 tanker, and you can see it looks like it's the formal, like, white paint with red stripes, because they were not just tankers. They were used for VIP transport. Like, that's how the Prime Minister used to get around, was in one of those. So they kind of did look like a civilian airliner when you formed up on them. And I remember the F-14 guy going, "Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there's some hoses coming out of the wingtips. All right, never mind. It's a gas station."
Brilliant.
So,
Gerry,
really
I'm just gonna give you another 5 minutes before we get Adam to talk on about cannabis, because I'm in a time schedule.
Okay. So the PTSD for me came. The PTSD came for me about a month after I got back, and my Major Ziffer, he's the only one I ever told about it for the longest time. It came because I had a recurring nightmare that I was in a tank. You remember I was in a Windsor Regiment, being bombed, and I couldn't escape. And it happened every fucking night for years. When that wakes you up, it's really hard to go back to sleep. And it's really hard to function without sleep. But I was a young man. I was strong. I had Karen's love, which is very, very powerful. And I just coped with it, man, for years. Didn't tell anybody. And I didn't tell anybody ever until my brother was in Chicago. I'd been hired by United Airlines already. That was 95. And it was 98 when this happened with my brother. The nightmare was starting to get a little less, because I admitted to myself eventually that I felt guilty about killing people. I felt guilty about taking human life. Which is fair. Understandable, right? So my brother was doing something at McU, McDonald's University there in Chicago. He said, "Hey, Gerry, I'm going to be in town. Do you want to come over?" I said, "Yeah, I'm actually between trips that day, but I'm staying in Chicago, so I'm not doing anything." He said, "Oh, good. I'll get a room with a couple of beds, and, we'll go down to the pub to get a nice sports bar. We'll watch a hockey game, have some beers, have some food." I said, "Brilliant." So we did. Well, the nightmare happened that night with my brother in the room. Because I know this, because he woke me at the door, pulling against, one of those bars that goes over, but you can open the door about 3 inches, but it doesn't come any further open. And I was banging the door open, trying to escape. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he woke me. And I said, "Oh, fuck. I got to take a piss." So I went to pee, came back to bed and laid on my bed. He on his in the dark, and said, "You're probably wondering what that was." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "You want me to tell you?" And he said, "If you want to." So I told him. And he said, "Wow, can't you get some help?" I said, "No, I'm an airline pilot. We're not allowed to conference."
Was that your first episode?
Oh, well, no, I've been having the nightmare for 7 years. First time anybody caught me in it. First time anybody knew about it besides Ziffer, who I told, and he said, "You just got combat fatigue, kid. If you didn't have it knowing you, I'd be worried about you then." So he thought it would probably just go away on its own, right? So I took that on faith and just soldiered on, as you would say.
Yeah, soldiered
So
on.
I told my brother the whole story, and he said, "Wow, can't you get some help?" I said, "No, I can't. No counseling, no drugs, no nothing, not allowed. Airline pilots, it's the FAA's rules." So
Really?
he said, "Well, that's rough." I said, "Have you?" He said, "Have you talked to Dad?" And I said, "No, but now that you know, I will." So next time I saw my father, about 3 days later, I told him. Dad was a family doctor at this point. He pulls out his prescription pad, and I said, "Don't bother, Pop. I can't take it." He said, "I'm just going to give you something mild for sleep." I said, "I can't take it. I can't report that to the FAA. They'll ground me." And he said, "Jesus, well, that's fucked." Just like that.
Yeah.
And it kind of is, but it's the way of the world. So, but having unloaded to my brother and my father, the nightmare was waning. It was not every night, most, but not every. But having done that, opened up to somebody, admitting that I was hurting, it never happened again, Edmund. It never came back. To this day, it's never come back.
Wow. It's bottled in for so long.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Gerry. I just wanted to let people know that you are, you're in America at the minute, aren't you?
Yes, sir. We've lived here since 1992 when I got into the Air Force because
That's it.
Karen was born here. And I took a job at United Airlines. So 30 years plus at United, just
Wow.
retired.
Just letting everybody know, Gerry is the ambassador for the Late Night Veteran Show in America. He's joined our team, so thanks for that.
Incredible story. Incredible story.
Incredible story. We're going to have you on again.
It's like a double bind, isn't it? Because if you had told the airline you lost your job, so it's a double bind. So I can really empathize what you went
totally.
through. Just terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, you feel very trapped, eh?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to do a couple of announcements and then hand you over to Adam. I've just got to do this. So we have some great news. We have joined partnership with Wilderness Emergency Survival Training that have some land in Pembrokeshire. They've offered to go in partnership, so we have land for veterans to come. They do emergency survival training there, and we're going to help and support veterans. There's a picture of us here somewhere. Just bear with me. His name's Greg. So we're in partnership, PTSD camp and Wilderness Emergency Survival Training. So we're going to help and support veterans. Now, Adam, this is your the third time on the show, in fact, but second time at co-hosting. I am literally going to hand this over to you. Take it away. I'm going to leave you and Gerry in the background. I'm going to do the controls.
How long have I got roughly?
You've got as long as you want. You've got 45 minutes.
When I see you falling asleep, I'll stop then.
I've got some food, so I'm going to cut off and leave you two in the background and have a chat. I'm going to watch you in the background. Is that all right?
We'll do it. That's absolutely fine. Yeah,
Adam, the show's all yours, mate. Take it away.
Thank you for that presentation, Gerry. Great stuff. And I think we all have. It takes it back to my grandfather. He was in Poland and Germany for 6 years as a POW. 40 years later, he was having flashbacks. 3 o'clock in the morning, you heard Lausch, Lausch, and Schnell, Schnell. 4 years later. But I'm going to do a talk tonight on cannabis because I know we all have problems, and sometimes it makes a problem easier if you like something which moved me this week.
Baby, I lost my audio.
Was a little girl in Palestine or Gaza, and she said, living amongst the tents, we have nothing. My God, we are so poor, in Arabic. So whatever you're going through, always remember there is someone out there in a far worse situation. So I'm doing a talk about cannabis tonight, and I've decided to conduct this presentation using a degree of objective academia from the Royal College of Psychiatry. I'm not trying to be flash, and also my own subjective experiences. Is there some background noise there somewhere? Is there background noise? Sure. Using my own experiences from working in the prison wings and wards over the years.
Gerry,
I'm not in any way.
Gerry, if you can just mute your mic, because there's a loud background noise. If you can just mute your mic, Gerry.
Is there some background noise there somewhere? Is there background noise? I think you have to mute the mic. Better. That's great. Yeah. So I'm not trying to be in any way dogmatic or judgmental, only to reveal some home truths about the reality of cannabis use and the situation. So why cannabis? I chose cannabis as opposed to other so-called recreational drugs because of its prevalence in both acute psychiatric wards and jails, my own personal experience. These are only my own opinions, but if I took you to some psychiatric settings right now, you would soon realize that often up to 90% of the patients there are suffering with the effects of what we call cannabis-induced psychosis. This can have an overall effect of, for want of a better word, paralyzing the unit, leaving the few patients with non-substance abuse issues, I refer to functional illnesses, depression, schizophrenia, and other conditions, leaving them paralyzed. I've endeavored to tailor this talk to the military. I also chose the drug cannabis due to its widespread use in general life, and I refer to nightclubs and the Notting Hill Carnival, which we have in London, where we can actually smell the stuff, you know. So the rationale, why am I presenting cannabis for this regarding soldiers? Soldiers have to stay balanced both mentally and physically. It is therefore vital that they refrain from illicit substances that have the potential to impair their judgment, which may put them both themselves and colleagues at risk. As soldiers, we want to function as optimally as possible, which is hard enough bearing in mind the adverse conditions we may be in. The last thing we need is a chemically altered state, which could have a detrimental effect on our behaviour, ultimately leading to some sort of diminished responsibility. In my service, I recall them showing us when I was at Catterick Garrison in North Yorkshire. This was 1981. They showed us a short film on what they was called negligent discharges. You probably remember that term. It's where you fired a gun and you kill someone. Well, anyway, they showed us this. It was actors. A few lads were frolicking around with a rifle, which led to someone being shot dead in the barracks. And the idea of this film was to prove how important weapons training is, and take it so seriously in the military and in the movie industry. And some of you may have seen the movie The Crow with Brandon Lee, which is Bruce Lee's son, martial arts legend. And Brandon Lee died at the age of 28 with a tragic on-set shooting while shooting the film The Crow in March the 31st, 1993. He was struck in the abdomen by a bullet fragment from a faulty prop gun and died during surgery. And I'm giving a couple of these anecdotal examples because it shows how seriously we have to take the issue of weapons training. More recently, on October the 21st, 2021, actor Alex Baldwin fatally shot cinematographer Haylina Hutchins and injured the director Joel Souza with a live round from a revolver during a rehearsal in the New Mexico set of the Western film Rust, which was therefore abandoned after this tragedy. This incident, occurring at Bonanza Creek Ranch, led to involuntary manslaughter charges against Baldwin, which were dismissed in July 2024 due to withheld evidence. This tragic case was particularly hard for me because I partook in a Zoom call with Haylina only a few days before this tragedy. Myself being one of the drill instructors on Steven Spielberg's Band of Brothers, I'm not trying to be flash, but I was. I'm proud to say that we had no injuries from weapons during production at all, which I think is a testament to how seriously we took the issue, how seriously production took the issue of weapons training. We only had blank K98 and also M1 American rifles, which still gave a bit of a flash when you pull the trigger, and you can shatter a glass in front of you if you're not careful. So Equity, which is the Actors Union, made us do another weapons training course. Personally, and this goes back to my childhood, I always make a habit of never pointing weapons. And you probably remember the James Bond actor, Roger Moore, who was also in the army. He had a fear of weapons. He put a weapon down once and he forgot to check it and the bullet flew out, and fortunately no one's hurt. But he had a sort of phobia about weapons. So anyway, back to the issue of cannabis. The legal status of cannabis in the UK. In the UK, cannabis is classified as a Class B drug under the Misuse of Drugs Act 1971, covering the plant and derivatives, called synthetic cannabinoids, resin, oil. It is illegal to possess, grow, and supply without a Home Office license, with penalties of up to 5 years in prison for possession, while legalized for specialist medical prescriptions in 2018. recreational use remains prohibited. And it's really gone up and down like a yo-yo. It's gone from category C to category B, and now they're even talking about putting it up to category A because they think it is a really, really dangerous drug. Key aspects of cannabis categorization. The legal status in the UK at the moment since 2009 is Class B. It was Class C from 2004 to 2009. Legal consequences, as I just mentioned, is possession can result into up to 5 years imprisonment, an unlimited fine of both. Production and supply can carry up to 14 years in prison. I'll talk a bit about medicinal cannabis. I know a lot of people talk about medicinal cannabis. Some of them use that because they've got a vested interest in it. I know that. Legal since November 2018 under Misuse of Drugs Act. It's provided it is prescribed by a doctor for specific conditions. CBD products, i.e. non-psychoactive cannabinoids, CBD, is not controlled under the Misuse of Drugs Act, provided it contains no traceable THC, that's cannabis and industrial hemp. It also requires a Home Office license to cultivate and it's generally restricted to industrial uses, to fiber and oil seeds. Categorization in the United States, and it's good that we've got Gerry on here tonight because that's where he is at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong, and if there's any questions I'm going along, please interrupt me. This is a two-way conversation. So US access federally, cannabis remains a Schedule 1 drug, but 38 states have legalized it for medical use with a doctor's recommendation. Schedule 1 drugs in the US are substances defined by the DEA, that's the government, under the Controlled Substances Act, as having a high potential for abuse. No currently accepted medical use and lack of accepted safety for use under medical supervision. These drugs cannot be prescribed and are strictly prohibited, including heroin, LSD, marijuana. Depends what state you're in. I do know because I've been to Hollywood a few times and I've seen people out there on their heads with the effects of cannabis, So this is a situation from the Royal College of Psychiatrists, which is based in London. The Royal College of Psychiatrists provides comprehensive guidance and position statements on both recreational and medicinal cannabis, primarily focusing on its impact on mental health. Their stance empathizes a high degree of caution due to the link between cannabis use and serious mental health conditions, particularly psychosis. The key stance on mental health risks. The Royal College of Psychiatry highlights several significant risks associated with cannabis use. Firstly, psychosis and schizophrenia. Research shows that cannabis users have an increased risk of developing psychosis, characterized by losing contact with reality, and this is the problem of starting very, very young. Starting the use before the ages of 15 can make a person 4 times, this is according to Royal College of Psychiatry, 4 times more likely to develop a psychotic illness. Depression and anxiety. Also, daily cannabis use is linked to increased rates of depression, anxiety, and reduced motivation. Sometimes what they call psychomotor retardation, very, very slow. Potency issues. Modern skunk, which is another derivation, varieties have much higher THC levels, up to 20%, compared to other strains, which significantly increases the risk of unpleasant and harmful effects. Any questions so far? Carry on. Occupational use comparisons. According to the data from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, this USA, and the Substance Use and Mental Health Services Administration, the highest rates of cannabis are found in food preparation and serving. This is the industry, people who work in hotels, etc. The industry ranks number 1 with roughly 30% of workers reporting current use. And there also a prevalent use is in the arts, designs, entertainment, sports, and media. These creative fields follow closely with approximately 27.5% of workers reporting use in the construction and extraction. This sector reports large rates around 16.5%. How does cannabis use begin? As many of us know, reality, as Gerry was just saying, reality can be absolutely intolerable. But as we know, reality is with a capital R is all we have. And the better we can cope with reality, the less chance we have of breaking away from it. You may recall, if you're fans of The Who, Roger Daltrey, and as I've been over the years, you may recall a song by Pete Townsend of The Who called However Much I Booze, which was written during Pete Townsend's, he's a guitarist with The Who, during Pete Townsend's drunken phase. Anyway, there's a line in there which says, however much I booze, there ain't no way out. Meaning you have to break the effects of inebriation and return to reality. In my experience, having worked in the area over decades, the negatives of being a politically correct term, polysubstance misuser, as opposed to drug addict, outweigh the positives, and that's the negatives. Cannabis is a dopamine antagonist. Getting a bit technical here, dopamine antagonist. Dopamine is the chemical, the hormone in the brain that makes us feel good. In order of magnitude, the first and foremost is the delusional, chemically altered state cannabinoids in juice. Not everything is known about the longer term adverse effects it induces. However, it is believed the younger one starts, the greater the chance of longer term mental illness. It is felt cannabis stunts development of dopamine receptors, particularly if you're between the ages of 15 and 30. Most sufferers of cannabis induced psychosis are put on antipsychotics. So another reason we test new arrivals in prison and in hospitals is because the cannabis could negatively interact, and the real risk of contraindications could be there. Contraindications is basically when it can interfere with another drug that you're on. People start using cannabis for various reasons, primarily driven by curiosity, peer influence, and a desire for recreational enjoyment or relaxation. Many use it to cope with stress, anxiety, or pain, self-medicating, while others are attracted to its mood-altering, intoxicating effects, such as increased appetite and feelings of euphoria. Drug screening. Now, this is a bit of professional stuff here. Drug screening. Prisoners and psychiatric patients, when they come to prison, are offered urine tests on arrival. From my experience, if they decline, that normally indicates that they're positive for THC, cannabis, or another drug. So another reason we test new arrivals is because the cannabis could negatively interact, and the real risk of contraindications could be there due to its harmful effects. A urine drug screen, which I haven't got one with me to, a UDS, is typically test for specific classes. It's a little pouch like that with THC, amphetamines, benzodiazepams, and other drugs on it. Test for the positive and negative. Urine drug screen typically tests for specific classes of illegal and prescription drugs that have a higher potential for misuse. Most screens are a panel system, which I just mentioned, where a simple sample is dipped in the urine. Commonly test substances. The most frequent is the 5-test panel, often used in workplaces. Most comprehensive 10 police panel or expanded test may also be used. So this panel, which is on the urine, you dip it in the urine, tests for cannabinoids, cocaine, crack, amphetamines, also ecstasy, opiates, opioids, heroin, morphine, codeine, etc., and other drugs. Immunogenicity screening. This is the initial rapid test. It uses antibodies to detect whether a drug or its metabolic, that's the chemical left after the body breaks the drug down, is present in the specific cutoff level. Conformity testing. If the initial screen is positive, a more precise lab test, typically GMS, is performed to identify the drug and rule out false positives. Validity checks. Labs often check the urine's temperature, pH, and also creatinine levels to ensure the sample hasn't been drilled or tampered with. Important limitations. I'm coming towards the end now. Thank you for your patience. Important limitations. Detection windows. Most drugs are detectable for 2 to 4 days after use, though cannabis can stay in the system for 30 days or more in heavy users. False positives. Certain over-the-counter medicines like cold remedies or foods like poppy seeds can sometimes trigger positive results for amphetamines or opioids initial screen. Presence versus impairment. A positive test indicates the drug was used recently but does not prove current intoxication or addiction. Contraindications, I did mention a little bit about that. Contraindication pertains to all medications, not only cannabis, mixing medications or in medicine. A contraindication is a specific situation, such as a symptom, medical condition, or the use of another drug that makes a particular treatment or medication inadvisable because it could harm the patient. So basically, contraindication is mixing drugs together. Okay, cannabis, I've really gone into a bit of detail here. I hope I'm not boring. I've gone into a bit here of cannabis and its masking effects. Cannabis usually masks underlying mental health issues, and I think this is quite important for those of us, and I think most of us have a mental health issue at some time in life. Cannabis frequently masks underlying mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, and also ADHD by temporarily relieving symptoms that latter return, often with greater intensity. This self-medication creates a quieting effect, delaying proper diagnosis due to the masking and treatment, while potentially triggering or worsening paranoia, psychosis, or cognitive impairments. Key masking and hidden effects of cannabis include mental health masking. That's regular use of cannabis can hide serious underlying mental health conditions like depression, bipolar affective disorder, that's mood swings, what they call psychothymic personality, or one to the other, manic illnesses sometimes, and anxiety disorders, making them appear treated when they are often only temporarily suppressed. Psychosis and paranoia. What is often perceived as therapeutic relief can mask the development of cannabis-induced psychosis, which occurs in some users, particularly with high potential products, and can lead to later diagnosis in schizophrenia, which is a big problem. Also, cannabis can use cognitive and emotional impairment. Cannabis alters how users process emotions, such as a reduced responsiveness to threats, while including paranoia. Long-term cannabis use is associated with reduced motivation, social withdrawal, and brain fog. I've seen this at work quite a lot. It also includes physical and social impacts. Users may mask chronic pain or stress, only for it to resurface with stronger intensity. Daily use of cannabis can lead to addiction, respiratory issues even, reduced memory, and severe longer-term anxiety. So as I said earlier, the negative really outweigh the positive. For some, cannabis serves as a way to deal with negative emotions or memories, but it often backfires, creating new mental health challenges. Notes from a study from the Legacy Healing Center. Okay, this one I quite like. Comparisons with cannabis and alcohol. Now, some of the people I've known over the years like to, particularly polysubstance misusers who use cannabis, like to compare cannabis to alcohol. I don't think there is any comparison really. So comparisons are often made between cannabis and alcohol. However, these two specific drugs are entirely different, have entirely different residual effects, side effects. Yes, alcohol in excess will lead to disinhibition and possible violence. The residual effects of cannabis, by comparison, are far more prolonged.
And so with you.
The Royal College of Psychiatry isn't sure how long the effects of cannabis last, or more importantly, when they may resurface. The reason we do random drug screening tests, i.e. on train drivers, and you were saying, Gerry, you're a pilot, the reason we do cannabis tests on train drivers and pilots is because you don't want the guy to have a delusional episode and take the plane into G-force when he's got the responsibility of the passengers. You may recall in Germany some years ago, I think it was, I won't mention the name of the airline, there was the pilot who suffered with severe depression. He decided to commit suicide, taking the passengers and crew with him. This tragedy, however, was more attributed to personality issues and depression other than cannabis. So I can't blame cannabis for that. The position on medicinal cannabis is the Royal College of Psychiatry. Again, I do come to them because they are really the holy grail in the UK of psychiatry. They do get it wrong. The College of Psychiatry maintains a cautious approach to cannabis-based medicinal plants for psychiatric conditions. It also insufficient evidence. The Royal College of Psychiatry states there is currently scarce, poor quality evidence to support the using cannabinoids in a primary treatment for mental disorders like PTSD, anxiety, or depression. Prescription limitations. In the UK, medicinal cannabis is generally only prescribed on the NHS for very, very specific conditions: rare childhood epilepsy, MS-related muscle spasms, and severe nausea from chemotherapy. Research recommendations. They do advocate, that's Royal College of Psychiatry, for more robust, high-quality clinical trials and the relaxation of research managers to better understand the potential benefits and harms. Primarily used for severe epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, spasticity, and chemotherapy-related nausea. Cannabis, these products all contain active cannabinoids like THC and CBD. Okay, key aspects of medicinal cannabis in the UK. I'm not sure about the USA. Legal status. It was reclassified in 2018. Medicinal cannabis must be prescribed by a doctor on the GMC, a specialist registrar, not a GP, I hasten to add. Access to this, usually accessed by private clinics rather than the NHS, which only prescribes in very rare cases. Eligibility, generally patients must have tried at least 2 conventional treatments for their condition without success before they go on to medicinal cannabis. Conditions treated: chronic pain, neuropathic, cancer-related, severe epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, spasticity, and other mental health conditions like PSD, and are commonly treated, but I say only very, very rare. Products include dried flower for vaporizing, oils, capsules, and sprays. Side effects can include dizziness, fatigue, increased appetite, and nausea. Important distinctions. I'm coming towards the end now. Medicinal cannabis. Are you guys okay listening to this? Carry on.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Both your chats have been excellent.
Sorry if I'm reading a little bit monotonously.
No, it's absolutely brilliant.
Adam, if I may.
Sure.
So I was enrolled in a master's program that had no clinical rotations, but I've withdrawn from that one, but I'm enrolling in another one for clinical mental health therapy. I want to become a therapist. But my first semester back at school for the master's in psychology, I wrote for my final paper for the class about PTSD. And to your point, the number one comorbidity with PTSD is substance abuse disorder.
Right.
And it's believed that that is contributory to the number of suicides and things like that we see in PTSD people. So it's a real thing. It really does exist, and it's documented. The American Psychological Association says it's the number one comorbidity. So any kind of substance use or abuse.
That was why I threw that bit in about the masking, how it masks the effects. And just to reiterate, if there are any underlying mental health issues, cannabis can mask those, making it difficult for a proper assessment and diagnosis. Thanks for that, Gerry. I'll just move on. Important distinctions. Medicinable, go on about medicinable cannabis, and also cannabis oil is sold in health food stores, believe it or not, in the UK, as a food supplement, not as a regulated medicine, and is generally low strength. True medicinal cannabis contains a broader spectrum of compounds, including higher THC, regulated for therapeutic use. Not a first-line treatment, it is only considered when other options have not helped. Medicinal cannabinoids are cannabinoids, chemical compounds derived from cannabis or produced synthetically that are used to treat specific medical conditions or symptoms. The two most widely used cannabinoids are THC, that's the delta-9 tetradicoboids, which is a psychoactive and also responsible for the high, and also CBD, which you probably heard of, which is non-intoxicating. Common medicinal cannabinoids, I'll just reiterate, CBD cannabinoids used primarily for its anti-seizure, anti-inflammatory and anxiety properties. Also THC, which is used for pain relief, appetite stimulation and reducing nausea. Synthetic cannabinoids, there is such a thing. Man-made versions like Nabilone, which I haven't used. Sesimet is another name. All drugs in the UK have another name, which one is the trade name and one is the medicinal name, usually in Latin. And also Marinol mimic. THC's effects are primarily used to treat severe chemotherapy-induced nausea. I'll just quickly go on about the approved medicinal uses. While research is ongoing, regulatory bodies like the NHS, which is the National Health Service in the UK, and FDA, which I think you have in the USA, have approved specific cannabinoid-based medicines for, just to reiterate, severe epilepsy, chemotherapy, believe it or not, cancer-induced nausea. Synthetic THC-like drugs are used when other anti-sickness treatments fail, and also, believe it or not, multiple sclerosis and spasticity. Adolescent vulnerabilities I'll move on to, because I did mention the danger of doing cannabis if you're between the ages of 15-30. The Royal College of Psychiatry say it stunts the development of the dopamine receptors, leading to permanent brain damage. But anyway, because the brain is still developing in the mid-20s, younger users are at the highest risk for longer-term damage and mental illness. Adolescents are more vulnerable to cannabis use disorder and cognitive impairment compared to adults due to the developing brain and higher neuroplasticity. With 87% of young users in the UK, treatment services reporting cannabis is a primary problem. Key risks including lasting IQ decline, and I have seen this in adolescents myself, impaired memory, and also higher addiction risk. Addiction risk, adolescents have a higher risk of developing cannabis use disorder compared to adults, partly due to the quote-unquote hyperplastic brain and developing endocannabinoid system. All this is complex part of the brain. And also complex cognitive decline. Regular use, that's weekly or more, starting in early adolescence, is linked to an average IQ drop of 8 points by age 36, alongside impaired memory and attention. Brain development, also from the Royal College of Psychiatry, cannabis use disturbs official and critical neurodevelopmental processes, particularly in regions that mature during adolescence, like the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus at the back of the brain. Mental health, while all users face risks, adolescent cannabis users are more susceptible to experiencing severe longer-term mental health issues. I've seen that myself. So the official UK data in 22-23, 12,418 young people were in treatment for substance use, with cannabis being the most common substance, reported 87%. Brain maturation. The brain continues developing until the late 20s. THC, as cannabis, affects the prefrontal cortex, which governs the decision-making and impulse control. High sensitivity. The developmental system is uniquely sensitive to disruption during this very young period. Behavioral factors. Adolescents in studies often exhibit higher impulsivity, which I've seen, and lack of safety, seeking more cannabis regardless of the amount consumed. And I have seen young people with this, and it is very, very sad, which is why I've chosen the subject of cannabis tonight. Common misconceptions about this. Research suggests that while teens are more likely to develop addiction to cannabis, they do not necessarily develop higher rates of immediate psychotic-like symptoms compared to adults who use the same amount, but their addiction risk remains much, much higher. Now, just to digress a little bit here, how many of you remember the name of a guy in America called Nicholas Cruz? Anyone know Nicholas Cruz? Well, Nicholas Cruz, I'll go into this. On February the 14th, 2018, there was a mass shooting when 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz opened fire. You might remember, it was a horrific shooting. opened fire on students and staff at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, killing 17 people and injuring 17 others. Cruz, a former student at the school, fled the scene on foot while blending in with other students and was arrested without incident approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes later in nearby Coral Springs. That's not far from Miami. I've been there. In court, Cruz was called all the names under the sun by relatives, understandably. But ironically, the only person who brought up the issue of cannabis and the effect on young people's behavior was Nicholas Cruz. And in a weird sort of way, I know he killed 17 people, but no one else in that court, no psychiatrist, they were calling them all the bastards under the sun, brought up the issue of effect apart from Nicholas Cruz. And I think it dawned on him what he had a horrific upbringing. He was in a foster family and all this, and he didn't have a nice upbringing at all. But that's the case of Nicholas Cruz. So I use that again as an anecdote of that's an extreme example, I think, of what cannabis can do.
Adam, if I may.
Sorry, yeah.
So there was a young lady that was a victim in that shooting, and she was the daughter of a fellow airline captain for United Airlines. An acquaintance, not a friend. I don't live in that area, but the outpouring to him was pretty spectacular. But to your point as well, so in the airline flying world in the United States, I don't know the world regulations, but I am subject to random drug and alcohol testing anytime I'm on duty. So that means when I'm reported in for duty an hour and a half prior to an international flight until 30 minutes after the flight, they can tap me on the shoulder and say, come piss in a cup or come blow in a tube. So that has been with me my whole life. And it's just something that we accept. You know, you want to do this job, you accept that. So,
and I suppose it can be random sometimes as well.
All the time. Probably been random 20 times over my 30 years. At the end of a flight, usually when you're trying to catch your commute flight home, there's a lady standing there with a nursing coat on saying, are you Captain Mackinnon? Yes, I am. Here's your paper. Sign here. And you've got 10 minutes to report to the MAR, as you guys would know it, but the clinic, where they're going to take a piss sample from you or have you blow in a tube and see if you've got any alcohol in your system.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure it's a friend of mine. He was sacked by London Transport a couple of years ago because they did a random test and they smelled alcohol in his breath, and understandably so. He's got it's a very sensitive area. He could fall asleep or whatever and take the whole lot with him, you know. And so prevention is often. I love the phrase "prevention is better than cure." Just to round up now, help deciding. Now this is a very $1 million question. Help deciding to stop cannabis, smoking cannabis. When you use cannabis regularly, it can start to harm other parts of your life. You may find it's affecting your finances, your work, or your education, or your relationships with friends and family. With a bit of planning, you can cut down or stop and get your life back on track. Before you cut down, build some structure into your day. I always think with any type of mental illness, it's always a good idea to restructure your day. It makes life worth living, doesn't it? Build some structure your day. If you're smoking lots of cannabis, life can feel a bit all over the place. And I can honestly say, without fear of contradiction, I've never done it. I would be as mad as a March hare if I was to do it, and that's another reason. I've made crazy films that I've had, you know, but I would be as mad as a fucking March hare, which is I've had my vices, alcohol, but I've never done cannabis. If you're smoking lots of cannabis, life can be a bit all over the place. You may be sleeping irregular hours, not eating properly. I think they call that the munchies, and also neglecting things like college or work. If you want to cut down or stop, it's helpful to get some structure back into your life. So this is very simplistic solution. So set alarms to get up and go to bed at the same times every day, you know, like a good boy. Try to eat regular meals and drink plenty of water. I'm not sure this is, I mean, I must admit, I found it hard to find solutions, but I'm doing my best. Plan activities you can do every day. This can be going for a walk, doing some exercise, or making some art, you know, whatever suits you. Once you've got more balance in your life, you can think about your cannabis use, right? Easier said than done. Well, get an idea how much you're using. It's important to understand your cannabis use before you start cutting down. You can do this by having a simple cannabis diary on your phone or in a small notebook. Aim is to do this for 1 week. Each time you smoke, note it down. Note down this: what day and time you smoked it, where you were at the time and who you were with, how much you smoked, how you felt before you smoked, and how you felt afterwards. All very detailed stuff for a person whose brain's all over the place, I must say. Think about how cannabis is affecting your life. Make a list of everything that's most important to you right now: your favorite people, your foods, places you like to visit, things you own, and what you like to do in the future. Then think about how cannabis is affecting these things. This pertains to a lot of addictions. Have you stopped doing things you used to enjoy? Is it harming your work or education? Are you arguing with your family and friends? How would you change if you stopped smoking? Decide what you would like to do instead of smoking cannabis. The best way to get rid of old habits is to swap them for new ones. Yeah, great idea. If you cut down or stop smoking, what will you do instead? Look at your list of things that are important to you. Could you spend more time with people who don't smoke, for example, or do more of the things you used to enjoy? See how you can change a habit. Set a small but realistic goal. Decide on one small realistic goal as your first step. You're more likely to stick to a small achievable goal. For example, if you're smoking 6 joints a day, quite a lot, perhaps you could cut down to 5, or you could carry on smoking 6 joints, but put significantly less cannabis in each one. So I have to laugh at this, because I mean, when your mind's all over the place, it's probably the last thing in your mind. The temptation, once you're confident you've achieved goals, you can think about your next step and so on. When you start cutting down, I'm near the end now, guys. When you start cutting down, use, delay, and distract if you get the cravings. Each time you feel an urge to smoke, see if you can delay smoking by just 5 minutes. I think it's the same with suicide. Some of the people I know that have threatened suicide, I always told them, delay it. You may not be thinking, the tragedy you're imagining in your head may not be there next week. So delay it by a week, and you may not be feeling the same way as you do this time next week. So use and delay. Distract yourself with something else. Watch a video, have a shower, make a cup of tea, or tidy up. Cravings are like the waves that build up to a peak and then fade away. Have we lost contact, guys? Will it fade away? By the time you've watched the video or have a shower, you may find the craving has passed. So this is what they call going into, I think, the void of thought. You're putting the distance between the cannabis and you're a little trance, if the way. You're proving to yourself that you can live without it. See if you can gradually build up to delaying each joint by 10 minutes, then 15, and so on. See more advice on how to handle cravings. This is important. Ride out the lows. People who smoke regularly often feel low if they don't smoke for a while. This is because each time you smoke a joint, your brain realizes a happy hormone, as I mentioned, called dopamine. Your brain starts to rely on a regular hit of cannabis to make dopamine and stops making it naturally on its own. That's why you may feel down very, very low when you're not smoking. These post-cannabis lows can usually last up to 4 to 10 days. You may get other withdrawal symptoms such as difficulty in sleeping, strange dreams, irritability, restlessness, cravings for cannabis, obviously. Try to get through them without lighting up another joint. And I'll finish now. It won't be long before your brain starts producing dopamine naturally again, and then you'll feel better. All very easy done. It's available. There's more help in the UK available in the NHS and a number of addiction centres. The mental health charity in the UK, Mind, is quite a good charity, very, very non-judgmental. Or for the armed forces, I think it's SSAFA charity. Breaking habits is difficult. It's been suggesting giving up smoking is harder than giving up heroin. Conclusion: make abstinence from cannabis part of your daily routine. Never devalue or put limitations on yourself. Give yourself a reward for moving on. So I think that's where you give yourself a pat on the back every time you replace a negative with a positive. So I hope I didn't read that, say that too monotonously. And I tried to do a balanced presentation on cannabis.
That presentation was absolutely brilliant. Well done, Adam. And I just wanted to touch on I'm glad you spoke about cannabis and drug addiction.
I'm not good
as well,
yet, man.
because yeah, 1 second. I had an addiction for many years. I'd left the army. I'd had a child that died at such a young
Edmund,
age.
are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
It's
I can
got.
hear you.
I've got you, Adam. Can you hear me, Adam?
I can hear you fine, Gerard. Yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
hear
I think
me?
Edmund's talking. I can't hear him.
Can you hear me, Adam?
I can hear
Okay.
both of you fine. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I had an addiction for quite a long time. Like I said, I was in the army. I left the army. I struggled with my own issues, PTSD, CPTSD. I lost my child, age 6, to meningitis, and I had a big drug addiction. I've managed to overcome that. But touching on the psychosis side of things, I didn't know what was real and what was not real, and it started becoming real to me that things were becoming real that wasn't actually real. And what I found about coming off, because it was cocaine, my addiction, is I would write down the positives and the negatives, and I'd work with that, and that's how different techniques for different people, but I was writing down the positives. Right, these are the positives, these are the negatives, and I was doing that every time, and it was reducing my step. And I also, when I had a lapse, I didn't kick myself. As long as I was taking, say, 4 steps forward, if I took 2 steps back, as long as I took more steps forward the next time, that's how I managed to achieve it anyway. But if anybody is struggling with addiction, get in contact, because I'm your best person to speak to. I've had drug-induced psychosis. I've been sectioned. I had a massive drug addiction. I am completely teetotal. I hardly even drink at all anymore.
Congratulations, though, Darren. You've done so well to get on. I mean, I think you
Oh,
look
fabulous.
at.
Fabulous. Brilliant.
I read Hugh Cornwall's, but you may have heard the band The Stranglers. Hugh Cornwall he was busted for drugs. He did some time in Pentonville, but he said, this is not cannabis, but heroin. He said, it's all right if you want to sit in a
never
room
done that.
24 hours a day, and then all of a sudden the walls melt, and then stars come out the walls. And I think it's like a lot of the people that have committed tragedies over the years, even Charles Manson, when he was on copious amounts of LSD. And those prisoners, most of them are out there, he's dead, but they had parole hearings every 6 years, but they were all middle-class Americans, and they were model prisoners when they're in. And I think if they'd have abstained from LSD, Charles Manson could have been a record producer or a professor or anything. I mean, to cut that, what they did to Sharon Tate was just unbelievable. But it was due, I think, to the effects of LSD.
If I may make a point, lads, before we sign off here, everything in life happens for a reason. And yesterday, a new to me Chris Stapleton song came into my life, and it's called "Demons Come Faster."
Knock harder.
And what? Say it again, love.
Demons knock harder.
Demons knock harder.
Yeah.
Is the name of the song, and I'll put a link to it on the website. It's a powerful song about demons. In other words, the things we're talking about.
Right.
But like I say, I don't regret anything I've done in the past. As before, I'd regret it, because the reason why I don't regret it is because it's made me who I am today. Now I am the best version I have ever been in my entire life today, and things seem to be. I set up this show. It's progressed. We've been approved by the Armed Forces Covenant. And also, we've got some breaking news, which I was just going to share with you guys in a minute. I did put it in the chat. Now, we have been offered a slot once a month in the Veterans World magazine. We are just expanding, and we're bigger and bigger. And it's only been the past 3-4 weeks where we're starting to be noticed. And Adam's come on board, Gerry's come on board. Well, our team's growing, and we're finding the right people. We've got Gerry in America as ambassador. We've got Reginald Reedon in Canada as ambassador. Well, Adam, co-host, you've done brilliantly as a co-host on Second Show. Absolutely proud of all of you. Big shout out to Gareth as well, and everybody else part of the team, our ambassadors. I'm just so proud of you all. So, any last words, guys?
It was fascinating listening to Gerard's aviation. To go, he went from fighter pilot to passenger jet. It was just fascinating. I mean, what a career, man. I mean, a career second to none. Fascinating.
I think we should get him
fantastic.
On more often.
Loved every minute of it.
Because you've got a lot of stories to share, and I know we've got a tight time frame. of an hour and a half top. So we've got 6 minutes left. But if we can get you on again, Gerry, that would be brilliant, because I'm sure you've got plenty of more stories to come. But you're part of the team anyway. You're ambassador for America, so that's brilliant. Any last words, guys, before we knock off the show?
I'd just say thanks for listening to me. I say sorry if I went a bit overboard tonight. I mean, I didn't know how much.
Absolutely brilliant.
I didn't want to miss, but it's been one of those drugs that it's fascinated me over the years.
I think it should be touched upon, because from my experience, oh, sorry, my light's gone out.
Hey, Edmund, just to answer your question, yeah, I'm happy to come on anytime, but
because say it's the old saying, private acts have social consequences. The private act of doing the drug leads to the social consequence of psychosis, diminished responsibility. I mean, I can understand what happened to you, Darren. You lost your daughter and all that. It was suffering. And you, how can I say, it's often, depression has often been called, rightly or wrongly, inverted anger, like internalized anger, where you are angry with yourself, and I think, terrible as it sounds, I mean, Gerard talks about his village. I was in the Falklands War 40 years ago. I'm not proud of it. I played a very small part in it, but how can I say, depression is internalized anger. But sometimes in life we have to accept loss, and every door has
absolutely
every ending has a new beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Gerry, let's bring it back to you. Sorry. Any last words?
Gerry, say it again. I'm having a hard time hearing. Turn up your volume a little bit, love. I've got no volume on my phone. I've got it on my wife's phone.
Okay. Any last words before we end the show?
Great show. I enjoyed Gerard's thing. Fantastic stuff, and I've learned something. And it's nice to share this information amongst other people, because learning is a social thing. And also making mistakes is part of learning as well.
Yeah, cool. So
okay, thanks, lads. This was brilliant. Happy to do it, and it's for me, sharing with a couple family members was enough to get it off my chest for good. Mind you, it happened for a long number of years, but it's talk therapy can work, and that's why I'm in school to become a clinical mental health therapist. Got to do something with my old man's time. Keep the brain going, right? Move forward.
That's it. And Gerry, you're gonna help us with the write-up, aren't you, in the Veterans World magazine? You volunteered here, didn't you? No, you can't hear me.
I'm sorry there, Edmund. I can't hear you.
So, Gerry, anyway, I'm just gonna announce it that you're gonna do the write-up for the Late Night Veteran Show in the World Veterans magazine for us. Guys, this is the Late Night Veteran Show, episode 73, with myself, Darren Edmundson, Adam Scarborough, the co-host, new co-host, and Gerry Mackinnon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Late Night Veteran Show. Until next week, see you soon.
Again soon.
I pledged allegiance to the flag God stood beside me. I swore an oath to my countrymen and kin. Side by side we sang our anthem oh so proudly. And this is where a soldier's tale begins. We left for foreign shores in the name of freedom, comrades in arms for the liberty of man. Shoulder to shoulder, but still could not redeem them in God's name, but no one could understand.
Yeah, great stuff.
Are we back again?
No.
Yeah, the show's ended. Hey, are we back again? I can see you, Edmund.